this video, I'm going to show you how to change strings on a Floyd Rose style bridge. I've already started, so I just got the last two left, my first two strings, B and D. So, of course, you got to have an Allen wrench and pliers, wire cutters. String winder helps. And normally, I just like do one string at a time, because if you take them all off the springs on the bridge, it causes problems. So you're gonna have to usually adjust the springs, or the bridge can fall off. There is a trick to that, though. If you have the back plate for this, where the springs are, raise the bridge. You can use the whammy bar. I just got an Allen wrench stuck in the hole for now, just so I can angle the bridge, and I'll put the flat plate that covers the springs in the back under the pegs that you tighten on the back, and that'll keep it at the same height without the springs pulling on it. All right. So first you got to loosen the nuts. I usually just do one at a time so I don't lose them. And then loosen the string. Just loosen it enough so there's some slack. You don't have to sit there winding it forever. Once it's fairly loose, I'll use the whammy bar, or right now I just put an Allen wrench in here, or a screwdriver, whatever. Pull the bridge forward and loosen the bolt on the back. That's holding that block that holds the string in place. And you just pop the string out. Saves you from winding it by hand. Alright. My fretboard's really dirty, so I'm cleaning it as I go. Not the best stuff to clean it with, but it works. I'm not going to say what it is, because then people are going to complain that I'm using the wrong thing. I just don't have fretboard cleaner right now. And usually after a while, I'll put what we call tongue oil on the fretboard to keep it from cracking and drying out. Just good maintenance. This fretboard's really dirty, so this is better than having the strings rub against grinds. Just going to make the strings sound dead a lot faster like that. These are like these Lysol cleaning pads with a bit of an abrasive edge, which is pretty much needed at this point. It's a little bit beyond elbow grease repair. Since there's some chemicals on here that probably aren't very good for the wood, I just try to dry it off right away with a paper towel. That's already 100 times better. All right, so onto the B string. Of course, your strings are going to normally have a ball end. And you just want to trim it up higher. You don't want to trim out the very bottom, but past the winding of it, just cut that part off. And now, how can I do this? Let's angle the camera a little bit. Now, here's this autofocus works like really crappy on this camera. Anyway, here's a block that's in the saddle. So I have the bolt loose, so the block, sometimes they're stuck in there. You might have to get a screwdriver to wedge it out a little bit. But I'm going to slide it against from the angle I'm looking at it now, how it is in the camera, the left side of the block. And in between that and the saddle. Make sure it's in straight, push it all the way down to the bottom. You kind of gotta, sometimes it'll stay there, sometimes you gotta hold it, and this is where you kind of wish you have three hands. So at the same time, I'm actually gonna throw the whammy bar in. It's gonna be easier than this rigged Allen wrench getup. Okay, so I'm gonna hold it in place a little bit. Raise it up so I can get to the back bolt. I can tighten it by hand and just keep making sure I'm in all the way and straight, which it's not. Alright, it should be in. Just double check it's in all the way. Now I'll tighten the back bolt. You don't want to go crazy tightening it, but you want to make it pretty snug. Don't put too much pressure, you're going to screw up your bridge. But if you don't put enough, the string can pop out on you. Make sure it's nice and straight in there. And then just pull the string forward, kind of put that natural bend in there. Now we look at the winding part, which this part I'll use on whether it's a fixed bridge or it doesn't matter if it's tremolo or whatever it is. This method is very helpful for keeping you in tune. And there's a little cat fight going on here. All right. So to make life easier, usually I'll line up the hole in the tuning peg here. So it's going straight as the direction of the string. And thread the string through. Okay, now we want to measure the string. Don't cut your strings until everything's done. And if you do that, you might screw something up and then throw away the string. So on the thinner strings, G, B, and E, high E, I'll give it a little bit more slack because they're smaller and I can wrap more times around. I want to wrap at least 2.5, 3 times around the posts without it overlapping, and it should be a downward coil. So to measure it, a good way is to like just grab it like a bow and arrow and use your fingers somewhere around like the 7th or 9th fret to measure it out. And that's usually enough. I'll give a little bit more on a thinner string. Then now the trick is put a sharp bend in it. That's going to keep it from sliding out and moving around on you. Usually when I do this, I can wrap it by hand. Again, on my higher strings, I'll do a downward coil normally, but on this one I'm actually going to go, here's the axis, I'm going to go over, and then the rest is going to go under that extra piece of string sticking out. Usually when I measure like this, I can wrap it by hand a couple times to get it started and save work on winding the string. But then again, that's where a string winder comes in useful. So now the trick is keep your finger really close to it so it's pushing down, and keep other fingers to hold tension on the string. And start winding. As the tension increases, you can let go of the fingers, and you'll see there's a nice, maybe you'll see, clean coil. Just get it, don't tune it up all the way. If you're not sure how to adjust spring tension on your bridge, what I usually do is each new string I put on, I'll get it close to in tune, so it's not changing a lot on the spring tension for the tremolo bridge. In this case, I'll probably adjust the spring tension anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Once I go through, if you use angled clips, you can trim really close to the end, and so you don't have the strings hanging out and not as much of a sharp point to get jabbed on. I have one more string to do, and there's no point, it's the same exact process. When I'm done, I'll put in the locking nut mechanism, insert it back. And one big mistake people do with these things is they tend to overdo it. You want to tighten it with after you tune it, of course. Before I even tune on the fine tuners in the back, I'm going to get those all at like a neutral area, so not too all the way down, not all the way up, somewhere in the middle. I'll tune it by ear, stretch strings. Every time I put new strings on, I'm going to stretch them manually by like kind of grabbing them and putting pressure, playing on it a bit. Then I'll tune it. Before I even bother locking these, I'm going to make sure it stops stretching, get the string stretched. Final step is I'll lock these. And that's the thing, you don't want to over tighten them. They should be snug, but don't over tighten them. A lot of times people end up stripping them, and that's what causes them not to hold correctly, and the guitar goes out of tune a lot faster. So there's just one string left, and I'm ready to go with this thing. And that's it for this one.